Welcome to the second episode of the Burning Questions podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a number of topics ranging from the morality and legislation behind and of abortion. And if we get to it, we might even delve into Trump's trade war with China that he's trying to introduce, and maybe his meeting recently with the Democrats on gun control measures. Today we're going to start with Tyler, actually, and see his views and opinions on whether or not abortion should be legal and when it should or should not be legal. Tyler, when do you think, in which trimester, would you be comfortable with saying abortion is no longer a moral option? Do you think any trimester? Do you think this should last up until the 39-40 week point? Or do you think what we have now, ending after the second trimester ends, is a good balance? How do you feel?
That's a tough question, but I would say any trimester. It wouldn't matter to me. Besides just the end of the, I think the third is the farthest I could probably see people actually pushing it. I don't think anybody will ever push it to any point, like I'm saying, but I think reasonably it'll probably be pushed to the third at some point.
You think eventually the Democrats will push it to the third?
I don't think
trimester?
it'll be just Democrats. I feel like eventually it'll be Democrats with a couple of moderate Republicans will be able to do that, but
Up until the...
I don't see that happening for a pretty long time. Probably in the next decade I'd see that happening. But
Would you agree with abortions up until the moment of birth?
I mean, I'd be fine with it. I'm not saying it's morally all right, but I'd be fine with it. I don't think it's... I mean, it depends. At the fourth trimester, that's when stuff actually gets really iffy, in my opinion, like growth-wise.
It's a trimester now.
Yeah.
Three.
Right.
There's no fourth trimester.
Is that fourth? I thought there was a fourth. No, I'm like dead ass. I thought it was like a fourth trimester.
I just read something about the fourth
There's a
trimester being
fourth
after
trimester.
you're born, but not really like...
That's not abortion.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
that'd be
anyone's
euthanasia.
okay with that.
That'd be euthanasia.
Right.
So, right, maybe that's...
Hey, we
maybe
can
by
actually touch on
accident.
that.
We could talk about that. We could talk about, euthanasia within the womb. That's a real thing.
Glenn, how do you feel about it? Do you think abortion should be legal? Do you agree with any stances on abortion that allow for abortion to happen? Or do you think that the moment of conception, the baby is it's a baby, and you don't agree with the termination of that
I don't
pregnancy?
agree with abortion at all, but like what we have now is, I guess, the most or least moral. I don't know.
You think it's the most moral option?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
That we're like reasonably going to
Yeah.
get in the country. Like we're not going to get any more pro-life or any more pro-choice.
Correct.
You think?
Okay, how do you feel, Cole?
I'm not a fan of abortion. I think it's really wrong. I think it's gross. It's disturbing. It's graphic. I don't know. I can see an argument maybe early on in the pregnancy of having an abortion,
Yeah.
or certain special scenarios such as rape and incest and stuff like that really doesn't happen.
Wasn't
a whole
most
lot.
incest rape?
I would hope so.
About to say.
It's been kind of gross if it's consensual, but I'm not a fan of Roe v. Wade. I don't think that was a very fair one. What do you think, Bo?
It's weird for me because morally, I feel like I've been pushed really right on this issue. I used to I guess I just never thought about it. I was just like, it's okay where it is. I don't really care either way. It's not affecting me. If I were to have a baby too early, I would be okay with my partner having an abortion. I think it would do the most good for the most people. But as I got older, I guess I would feel more obligation on myself, As I'm more able to take care of the baby, I would feel like I am just more making decisions about my wants than my needs. I feel like right now if I had a baby, I would be destroying a lot of things that are almost necessary to have a prosperous life and to move up in a financial and social class. But if I had a baby when I was like 22, 23, I'd have a lot better of a shot. I'd at least gotten through 3 or 4 years of college. Maybe I would have some sort of job that isn't, working at your local fast food restaurant. I think still I'm okay with where we are now. I feel like this is the middle ground. I just like we were looking at statistics earlier, abortion rates have steadily declined under the laws that we have now. So I think we're actually doing okay. It's kind of the if it ain't broke, don't fix it motto in my opinion. And I feel like we're trying so hard to fix it that we're just creating new problems. Just creating new ones. Let me think. If you were going to change the laws, what would you do about it, Cole? Would you completely strip the right to abortion for all women?
No. Yeah, for one thing, I don't think it would ever happen. For another, there's a few things. I would definitely cut off funding to Planned Parenthood. I don't think it's necessary. I think I think Planned Parenthood, if the company can support itself, it should support itself, no matter how good a service that company does. Or I would probably reduce it to more middle of the road ground. Reduce it right now into the second trimester. That's going to be about 24 weeks. I'd probably push that back down to at least 15, 18, somewhere around that age range. Abortion, if you've ever seen how it's done, is pretty graphic. I think the younger that the baby is, I guess if you have to have an abortion, the better. Before it develops pain receptors, before a brain fully develops, a heartbeat, stuff like that. So there's not a whole lot in today's political climate I think we can do about abortion, but it's a nice thought, If for someone on my side, I don't see that Roe v. Wade is ever going to be overruled. I just don't think that will ever happen in my lifetime. So.
Yeah, it's very staunch.
Yeah, because you have such a standoff between two people. Because one side believes if you take away the right to abortion, you are taking away a woman's right that they hold near and dear, and that they should be able to do this, somewhat like a person's right to own a gun, in the sense of that's how strongly they feel about it. Then you have another side that believes this is one of the worst genocides in the history of the world, and you're going to have a very big argument on that. So it means a lot. So someone from a pro-choice side has to understand what it means coming from a pro-life side. They see it as children being murdered, so you have to be able to try to respect each other's opinions on it, I think, more. But like I said, in today's climate, that doesn't happen. So I don't think a whole lot can be done.
Well, you're a conservatard, so it doesn't matter.
As we were saying in the statistics, I don't remember if those were world statistics or just America. Those are a little high, but I mean, it could be maybe. Overall, it was from 1970 to 2014, it was 44 million abortions. So it would be one of the worst genocides of all time if you feel that way about it. So, I still think that there's some leeway right now. Trump was very adamant about pro-life, putting pro-life judges on the Supreme Court. So I'm seeing a really staunch pro-life movement. People really bunkered down into that viewpoint, which is interesting because it's something I never saw. And a majority of people in America are still pro-choice. And if you knew that, but even conservative women, some conservative women, still like a majority of women overall, but some conservative women are to blame for that, are pro-choice.
Yeah.
And that's just something that women hold dear. Like you said, men are a lot more pro-life, just in general.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's two things in Trump's base. I think one of the reasons Trump is so pro-life, there's two things in Trump's base that his base will alienate him on these two issues. And I think these are pretty much the only two issues that Trump can genuinely lose his base over, and that is the right to bear arms, and that is pro-life. If he were to flop on one of those two issues, I genuinely think those are the two issues that his base would abandon him on. I think that's it. I do not see anything else. Whenever he says he can go shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, I genuinely believe a lot of people would not leave Trump. But if he were to flop to pro-life or pro-choice or to taking away Second Amendment, his base would alienate. I think that's the only two issues. So in a sense, I think Trump has to be pro-life. Otherwise, he will have no chance in 2020. No, zero.
I mean, he's gonna win no matter what. I don't think I think he'll win no matter what.
I don't think he's gonna win. But
I'm a liberal.
That's
I think he'll still win.
that's a long way away, and I don't have no idea where the Democrats are gonna run. So,
It'll be Joe Biden.
and
he'll
I'm sure
lose.
there will be a Republican that challenges Trump in the primaries, which will. Be
I highly doubt it. I don't think anybody has big enough balls to challenge him.
Kasich or Flake. That's my guesses.
You say Kasich?
Kasich.
Okay, Glenn.
Kasich is not.
So,
Anyway, we're getting off topic.
why do you think that abortion is wrong in any situation except you said rape and incest? Do you think those two, a woman should have the right to an abortion?
Yeah, to a certain extent. Like, I believe any baby that is born has a purpose. Like, a baby isn't born and it's just nothing. It's like, if a baby is born, it's supposed to be here for a reason. That's what I believe.
And that you feel like that is a lot from your religious background?
Of course. Yeah. And to say that you're taking away the woman's choice, I mean, I can understand that to an extent. But I think the choice is before you commit the act
Right.
to have safe sex or not. That's where the choice is, and they're moving the choice to the other side.
Cole, do you feel like kind of the same way that your religion and your religious beliefs have kind of pushed you to believe that life begins at conception?
Yeah, I think it has a big hand in it, but also, in a large sense, coming from a non-religious background, and a sense of that, if I'm going to argue against abortion as from the point of view of an agnostic or atheist or any other religion, I think my main selling point is that it's pretty much just unfair. Like, the odds of you being conceived are so astronomically slim. It's like winning the lottery and then like getting hit by a bus on the way to picking up your winnings. It just doesn't seem right to me. So, and this is all a moral argument, I understand. And there's not a whole lot of science to back up a lot of pro-life movements, and I don't think there's a whole lot to back up pro-choice movements either. I think this is really just a moral thing with America. And it's something we're very, very divided on. So, but I would say religion has definitely helped in my stance. But I don't think it's the sole reason.
Tyler, do you feel like your religious beliefs or an absence
My
thereof,
lack thereof.
yeah, has really contributed to your views on this, or do you feel like it's more just you looked at statistics, you looked at data about the subject, and you said, well, if you look at it this way, which some people may not be doing, this is why I feel that way.
Before I answer that, I want to get to what Glenn said. Glenn, from what you said, that means as a kid, if you were 5 years old and you went to the doctor's office and you got prescribed something, you can't say yes or no. Your parents are the ones who dictate this, and that's a certain type of feeling is how it is when you're that young and you can't make a choice like that, that the parent is the one who makes this choice. So by that logic, the parent should be able to make this choice of whether they want to bring a kid into life, even if it's just the mother or if it's the mother and the father. That's the same. It goes the same way. Like, if you know what I'm saying. Like, let's say like you don't want to take like this nasty medicine or whatever, but you have to because I don't know, you have like the flu or something. I have no clue, but your parents are the ones who are like taking on that decision for you because you're not old enough to make an educated decision on that topic.
So you're saying a parent can allow their child to forego the medicine if they wanted to? Is that what you?
No, I'm saying they can't. I mean, I guess you could if the parent was like, no, I don't want them to take this, and I'm making that decision for my kid. I mean, those are called like anti-vaxxer people and stuff like that.
Right, but I'm trying to see what point you're trying to make
But
here.
you're saying at such a young age that they're not thinking about that yet, but they're just taking the medicine because of health reasons, right?
Yes, I'm saying that the parent is making this choice that, all right, I want my kid to be healthy. He's going to have to take this, and that's what the doctor's prescribing. The kid can't make that choice. He doesn't know any of this. A 5-year-old doesn't know like any of this type of stuff. They just know it's some nasty stuff I have to take every 12 hours to make sure my flu or my cold or whatever goes away.
I'm just confused on what point you're trying to make here. Like, yeah, I get it, but what does this have to do with Glenn's point?
I'm saying for abortion-wise, this can apply
Relate
the
this
same
back
way
to
towards
abortion.
the mother, towards the parent, about having an abortion. This can apply the same way.
So you're saying if both of them are underage, right, and they have a kid, you're saying that the parents should be the ones that decide whether they have an abortion or not.
No, I'm saying the fact that the parents are the people having the kid together. As in, either it's just the mother or it's the mother and the father, that they are allowed to take on the decision of this child that is growing inside of her, to either kill it off or to not.
Okay. Do you feel
Because
like,
what you guys are saying is like you're giving the choice to an unborn
I'm not
person,
giving
that's
the
what you're
choice.
saying, to live.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying. I know a uterus or a fetus or whatever can't tell me if it wants to live or not. I know that, but I'm saying they have the right to live, as opposed to, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Okay, Tyler, I wanted to ask you, does your religious beliefs give you the perception of why you think abortion should or should not be legal?
Well, my lack thereof. But even before I was like fully 100% atheist, I always had the idea of pro-choice. Mainly because I was raised by more women than I was men. Like I was around my grandmother more, and my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and my mother way more than I was around my father. And I have a feeling being raised by more women kind of gave me that sort of pro-life choice, because two of them are pretty conservative, and my mother's a bit more moderate. She doesn't really care about this, but I think being raised by more women kind of gave me that pro-choice opinion a bit more. But at the same time, I've always been like that, even before I was really big atheist.
Would you say those figures were religious or not?
They all were. I'm the only atheist in my entire family. My father's side are all very, very, very religious. They say grace at every single meal humanly possible. They couldn't eat like a snack without saying grace.
It's interesting.
It's like a sin. My mom's side is not that religious, but some of them go to church regularly. My mother does not. And neither does her mother. But my grandmother does. Great grandmother.
Let's get back to it.
Yeah. Do you think that those beliefs cause you to believe that a baby does not have a spiritual soul? Like there's no life at conception, really? Or at least not the conscious life that you believe would make it... it would make it wrong, just innately wrong, to kill this being. At one point, what point does that kind of...
I don't want to say
I'm
soul.
not saying biological.
I'd like to
life.
say like personhood, and it's like being a person and being a self more than a soul, because that's basically the same thing, except we're not using some abstract religious thing that is what most people tie to for the word soul.
Well, I mean, soul and personhood,
Like the self,
consciousness,
yeah, it's
those
the
are all
consciousness, so
loosely
it's the self,
defined.
so
You
it's-
could call them all loosely defined.
Yeah, it's all basically the same thing. And I mean, I wouldn't consider somebody a person who is unborn like this and still developing. I don't think that's a person. I can barely think of a 2-year-old as a person. It's a human, yes, but I don't think it's a person yet. Like a person has a fully developed personality and knows how to independently make choices and has all these different opinions and ideas and thoughts. But I don't think even kids have this stuff till they're at least double-digit ages and stuff like this. They're still human, don't get me wrong, but they're not. That's not personhood until you can really like think for yourself and have independent thought. Until
So at what point do you
Yeah,
become
like
human?
what basis Do
I mean,
you
they're all
think-
like as soon as you pop out of your mother, you're human. But I'm saying to be a person, it like at least you'll start at like 3 or 4.
So
whenever
you
start.
say you become a human being as soon as you come out of the vaginal
As soon as
canal.
you come out, you are 100% a human. But being a human doesn't necessarily mean that you're a person.
So, what you're saying is that because you believe in third trimester abortions, the day before the pregnancy, the woman can have the abortion, and that's fine. Then, but the moment the baby pops out and the doctor kills
Then
the
that's
baby,
not fine.
then that's not fine.
No, that's basically like saying if I drink one day before I'm 18, that's perfectly fine. No, that does not make sense. You are not 18 yet. Even if it's one day before, the law will still process you as if you were a minor if you're drinking at 17 just
Okay,
a day
but
before.
There's a much larger
I'm very
toll between
drinking
underage.
and abortion,
and
but
murder.
that's basically the same process that you're using here.
But this, so 24 hours makes that big a difference in your mind. That justifies a person. Is that span, those hours, can justify you becoming a person.
Yeah.
Seems like a legal standpoint, really, to me, is that if the law says, like, if you were to get an abortion and third trimesters were legal, that's where it would stand. But if you got an abortion in third trimester right now, would you find it morally wrong? Would you disagree with it? Because it is legal to have an abortion in third trimester. So,
By a legal standpoint, yes, it would be wrong. But as a moral standpoint, I don't think it would be wrong.
okay, so I was just having trouble kind of finding what your basis was on it. Cole, what do you think? Why do you think a baby is given personhood the moment it's conceived? And what this is my one problem, and I wanted you to talk about it because I think we talked about it a little bit before. What is the difference in the value of that personhood when the mother has consensual sex and she wants to get an abortion
Right.
versus when the mother has unconsensual sex with rape? Because I know in one of them the mother's not giving consent, and maybe that's the base. That's what I hear, but I just feel like you're answering half of the question.
Right.
You know,
I understand
but,
where you're coming from.
but you're not really saying, okay, this is still a baby, even if it's from Saddam Hussein who
Right.
raped a woman at her wedding. You know,
Right.
that was an act, not Saddam Hussein. There was a case where a Middle Eastern man attacked a wedding, and it's disgusting. And then you would think, well, of course this woman has the right. On her wedding day, she was violated and she was pregnant. You would assume this would give you the right to an abortion, no matter how late. If you believe that conception confers personhood, then you see a contradiction.
Right. I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but let me get into it real quick. This is giving me a lot of time here. Okay. One thing, this is where my religious background, I think, really does kick in. I think a baby conceived under an evil circumstance such as this is not something that's necessarily is the same thing. And this is mainly religion based compared to the morality based, I guess you could say. The birth at conception is it's interesting that you bring that up, because while Tyler does say the point of personhood is whenever you leave the vaginal canal, I just think my mentality is if something has the potential to become a person and it was brought upon by the correct circumstances
Natural
and
processes.
right the way it should work in our society of values and that follows along our social fabric. I'll be there in a second. I think then you sort of have a responsibility to make sure that person comes through. It seems really unfair that you can just ditch that out of. It's not always out of convenience, I know, but a lot of times I think it is out of convenience, and that bothers me. That you don't that in my point of view, that baby, that kid, doesn't get a chance. Like he doesn't have a microscopic chance because he's just in a uterus. I mean, that seems wrong to me, and I know this isn't the right argument to make if you want to get something done legally. I know that, but if we're going to talk about a morality terms that's where it lies with me. Is that if you brought the child into this world under the correct circumstances, and it was consensual, and you knew what was going to happen, you knew what the possibility was of happening going in, I just feel like you kind of have a duty to raise that child, and I can't get around that in my head.
This is slightly off topic, but I wanted to go back to the legality before somebody brings this up. I know a lot of people bring up to where whenever a pregnant woman gets shot and the fetus is killed, that people charge it as like you can charge it as a homicide, almost.
It's a double
And I will,
homicide.
and I do want to say this: if the woman plans on having this birth and she has not conceived a thought of an abortion at all towards this, then I think it is perfectly fine and legal to say that that is homicide. But let's say the woman was considering an abortion and this happened.
You think it should only be one?
Yeah,
Not-
it would
not
only be
double.
one homicide then,
Not a double.
not double.
Okay.
But that's the intent on the parent and the mother.
But that's another thing, is that it's just the mother that gets a say in it. The father's not going to have a say.
Yeah,
in
if
abortion.
the mother
if both
was,
parents
what if
agree?
the mother was completely pro-life on this, and the father was really worried about this and wanting to have an abortion? Where would you draw the line? And if it was
Right.
the other way around, where would you draw the line? Do you think it lies mostly with the mother because she's the one that has the child?
Do I
Or
think
do you
it-
think it's shared because they both conceived the child, just because one's carrying
It's not. I don't think it's shared. I mean, it's like 75-25.
Do you-
I
Are you
feel
asking how it is now, currently, or
innately-
how it should be?
I'm feeling innately that it's more the mother, but that's just what I feel. I don't
Right.
know. I haven't really
Yeah.
thought about it
I think the same way.
in
Bob.
terms, you know. But
I
I would
understand
I
what
would
you
be able to move on this argument. I feel like if I was brought up a good enough, it's down the middle because of conception. But I
Right.
also just feel like because the mother is the one who is closest with children, I feel like she
It's
has
also
more say over
her.
it.
Yeah.
Some would say she shouldn't have more say over whether the children die or not. But
Right.
like I can see these arguments from both sides. I wanted to get into our second point, kind of move into legislation, because we've been talking about this for a while. But I still want to hear about the consent and non-consent. So,
Okay.
any of you can chime in on this. Really, we can each talk for like 2 minutes. Just keep it brief. Do you think that there is a moral difference between a child who is a product of a rape, a child who is a product of complete consent? You know, like, I just want to know why this baby's life, separated from the fact of where it was conceived, it's still the baby's life,
Right.
is different than a baby from a 35-year-old married couple who is
You mind if I
completely
go
in
first
every
on
way
this, Paul?
able to take care of this.
You mind if I go first on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Because whenever, let's say the child of this rape is born, okay, let's say like in whatever state they could not get an abortion because by the time it was figured out and due process was done, it was the 3rd trimester, and she had to go through with it because legally she could not have an abortion at the 3rd trimester. So she has the child, and let's say that she puts all the anger that she had at the rapist into this child. That is equally as not fair to me as Cole saying to kill what he believes to be a person. So to me, I don't think that's equally as fair to raise a child in a really crappy environment. Like, what's the difference between not being alive at all and not being conscious versus being conscious and having to live like 18 years of an abusive life because your mother really didn't want to like have you because she reminded her of like all the traumatic stuff she went through during a rape. Like,
And that's a pretty convincing anecdote.
Yeah.
But do you still think it's anecdotal? Like,
Well,
you know, I feel like that's a good argument specifically to that mother. But do you think that that is always what would happen? And that I still don't know if that answers the separate question of what makes the life different. And it's kind of weird for you, Tyler, because you think that both of them should be legal. You think the abortion of a regular consenting relationship should be illegal. What about a rape? You know, it's hard for you to decipher it because you believe they're both
yeah, I believe they're both
equally valid points. kind of seeing, Cole, do you think that there's a difference based on the consent and not on the baby's life?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of difference actually. To counteract Tyler, I mean, I don't think anyone should grow up in an abusive household and something like that. That sounds awful. But I mean, there are options. There is adoption, and adoption in this country the process needs to drastically be improved. It's a horrible process. I have
Very slow.
it's terrible. I have an aunt and uncle that went through. It's insane. You have no preparation time. Like they'll just call you and tell you, okay, you're gonna get a kid today. It's insane. It doesn't make any sense. You just sit there and you wait and you wait and you wait, and there's so much problems, legality. We really do need to fix this problem. And you know, a lot of people on the right say you only care about the child until it's born, and then you don't care after it's born. And I totally disagree with that point, but I understand where they're coming from in the sense that it is a horrible adoption system that we have in this country, and it definitely needs to be fixed. Secondly, the difference between the rape and the consenting. Okay, again, this is partially, I think, my religious background talking. I do think it's very different in the sense. I'm not going to say it guarantees a bad seed or whatever you want to call it, but it's about the mother's ability. It's putting the mother's life ahead of the child's life, which in a lot of circles I agree with. If a mother's at risk to die during a pregnancy or whatever, I can totally see an argument for that. You know what I mean? And I think, in someone in this camp, this is the mother's right or life traumatically, if that makes sense. You know, the trauma of being raped is something that I can't even begin to fathom. But I do think that would fall under the well-being of the mother ahead of the child, if that makes sense. Do you see what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, I can see that. And
Right.
it's still just an open the air question though.
It is.
Some people just
Because some people are going to
at
agree
the
and disagree.
fundamental level, yeah, they fundamentally think that once this baby is conceived, that Ben Shapiro even, which I wanted to make sure, so I watched it last night, when asked about if incest and rape count, it should validate abortions,
Right.
to kind of put this all together. He said that the rapist should be castrated or murdered, death penalty, and you should keep the baby. So he's still, which you have to kind of give him credit. I mean, he stuck to the argument,
he's
you
consistent
know.
about it.
It's consistent, and
Yeah.
that's some. If he would have wavered, people could have got him and said, "Hey,
Right.
just because does the mother's consent change the value of a human life?" And if they would have got him on that, his arguments would have started to look shaky.
Yeah.
That would have been a really big flaw in one of his arguments, even if you disagree with it. Just
Wait,
having
Cole.
people that can make a logical jump to disagree with Ben Shapiro is something that would kind of hurt a lot of his other arguments. I feel like it would hurt his credibility.
Cole, you said you would be fine with them like prioritizing the mother's life over the kid, really?
That's a
In
common
in
thing.
situations
I know it's a
of
common thing.
death
I'm actually
or
pretty
rape
surprised by
and
that.
incest.
That's in the Catholic Church is okay with that. If a
No,
mother
no.
has
I'm just
cancer-
saying by do you agree with that like morally wise that like you should prioritize the mother over the child?
Yeah, I can see that.
Really?
Well, it's a person's life versus another person's life, and
I'd actually.
it's not a fair choice to make, but it's a choice that does have to be
I
made.
think I'd
occasionally.
rather save the kid over the mother. I think that would. To
But
me,
now
that just
you're
seems
talking
more right
about-
thing.
I
I
I know.
have to disagree with that.
Yeah.
I know.
I disagree with it fundamentally. And it's actually because of a lot of research from the scientific community that makes me feel like if you're going to compare an unborn fetus to a fully grown and developed person, you have to imagine how much more conscious this person is of pain and suffering. I mean,
Right.
yes, this baby may feel pain, but think about the difference between, I don't know, killing a pig and killing a human. The human is infinitely more susceptible to pain and trauma and memories and hopes and dreams and aspirations. All of these things that only we can understand are totally more present in a fully developed human or a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
That's why you would save the 5-year-old and not the 10,000 embryos. Because this is a human that is formed and developed. And that's, like, you told me that argument one time, Cole, that the argument that destroys the pro-life is that you would save the 5-year-old boy and not the 20,000 or 10,000 embryos or something. That's why I've always disagreed with it, because I was thinking, like, even the science community
it's a very
will
dumb
argue
argument.
that the 5-year-old it's just more susceptible to conscious torment than even 10,000 embryos are. I would rather kill 10,000 chickens than a 5-year-old boy.
Right.
Any day, in any situation, no matter what these poor chickens went through. And I feel for those chickens. If you plucked every feather while they were alive, I would feel for them. Would not care in the long run.
I'm sorry.
know
All I
you
can
mean
think
it
of is
right
like chicken McNuggets from
Infinitely, I'm
being made
sure
right now.
if a 5-year-old boy was held hostage and
I was
the
about to say,
terrorists
I hope you
said,
don't value
if
chicken
McDonald's
McNuggets
does
for
not make 10,000 chicken nuggets, then I will kill this
Yes.
5-year-old child.
I understand.
I think they'd probably be okay.
Yeah. I understand what you mean.
So that argument just always have made no
Right.
sense to me. Even when I read it and I was very far left, I was like, well, this is just ridiculous.
Right. But like my main point is about the rape. I guess the strongest argument that one can make is that it is putting the woman's life before the baby, in the sense of trauma and brain capacity to feel terrible things and so on and so forth. Yeah, I say there's a pretty big difference between rape and consensual relations.
Alright, okay, our next and final really go at abortion. How do you feel about the predetermined social state, I guess you could call it, mental state of your child? How do you feel about having an abortion when you already know what it's going to turn out like, and it comes on with Down syndrome, autism, some of these mental issues that could really affect how the baby's life will turn out as a whole? Do you think it's moral to have that baby, or do you think it's immoral to have that baby?
I think you should have the baby.
Have the baby either way?
Yeah. I don't think it's fair. I mean, if someone has a shot, I'd like to think that they would be okay with taking that. Wouldn't you? I mean, if you knew you would have an illness for your whole life, wouldn't you rather have a right to life instead of being killed?
Yeah, I feel like they could still enjoy life, whatever life that is.
I guess there are levels to mental issues and mental disabilities. There are some people who consciously do not even understand life. Some people sit in a wheelchair and have a machine to breathe for them and do not experience. But I guess you can't really.
That's definitely not living. If we're like sitting in a wheelchair,
I don't think they're talking
that's
about that.
a
They're more
vegetable.
talking about.
No, we're not talking about that. But
people you see.
can
in
we all
high
agree
school.
that that's definitely not living? Sitting in a wheelchair like a vegetable.
It's not much living there.
No. Okay, Tyler, how do you feel about it? Do you think that if you can determine whether or not your baby has Down syndrome, let's just say in the second trimester, or not even the third, let's say we have new equipment,
Well, here-
we can determine almost from the moment of conception, if you decide to get an abortion in your second trimester, which is completely legal, do you think it's moral, not on the grounds of just,
I'm not even going to talk about the second trimester. Here's a good example, in my opinion. Why it's not just second trimester, but even in the third trimester that you can do this, first, second, or third, and why? Let's say, like just how the Zika virus came to be a thing last year, and let's say everybody knows that it's not really that dangerous to somebody who's like an adult, but if it bites a pregnant female, it can severely mess up the fetus and have all different types of birth defects.
developmental issues?
Yeah, and it's a horrible existence to be born, and you're basically dead on arrival coming out.
I think we can all agree that
That's different, though. That's not what I'm
different.
saying.
There's two
But
sides of
the
it.
Zika virus can cause stuff like you're saying.
I understand, but we're not talking about the Zika virus. We're talking about.
Do you think
This
it's
applies the
morally
same
okay
way.
for the
It's
Zika
morally
virus?
okay to do
I'm not
it
saying
with or
I'm
without
not going
the
to
Zika
say
virus.
it's morally okay or not. I need to know exactly what the challenges the kid's going to face in his life. But I mean, if it comes out in a vegetable-like state, then yeah, you have an argument morally against, aborting the child. But if it, I'm talking, you've been told that your child is going to have Down syndrome. I mean,
And you were totally for this pregnancy up until this point. You were totally okay with pregnancy.
If you're totally going through with it, and then at the 18th week, you're told, okay, your kid's gonna have Down syndrome.
Should you just flip like a switch and go get it? I don't know.
Well, it depends.
Is that okay?
I mean, if the parent is fine with their child having Down syndrome, then yeah, keep going through it and don't abort. But if they change their opinion and like, I don't want my kid to have Down syndrome, I don't think I can take care of a kid like that. I think my child shouldn't have to live with that. Then that's fine to have that abortion. But if you don't want to do that and you're fine with your child having that, and that's perfectly fine to let them come out with it. I'm not saying to be like Adolf Hitler here and anybody who has any single disability just like kill them off instantly, but
Yeah.
it's not fair for the parent to have to raise a kid like that if they don't want to and aren't capable to, and they don't believe they're capable to, because that's even more like resources you have to pull into it. That's like raising a kid for forever, because they will always be slightly mentally lower than everybody else.
I can see your point on that. Like, if you physically cannot support a child, then I can see where abortion. I'm not gonna say it's right. It's never right, but could be more right than other situations. And I don't know if you could. Can you put a Down syndrome child for adoption? I mean, I'm sure you can. But,
Yeah.
So I think that's a better option than having an abortion. Just putting
Like,
the
who's gonna
child-
want to adopt the Down syndrome kid?
I
Like,
mean, I feel
like,
like,
I hate that's horrible to say.
Yeah.
I don't even know why
but I
I'm
feel like
laughing.
there's
That's horrible.
those certain people in the world that
Yeah.
Could
uh,
hit.
Yeah, there
definitely.
are. You have to. I mean, you can argue anecdotally with anecdotally evidence. You know, you can say this one-off situation, then you can say this one-off answer to it. I think where it gets hairy is that you're saying that they should still have the choice, and it's morally okay to say, well, I was okay with this pregnancy, but now that it's autistic or it has Down syndrome, now I have a moral obligation to not have the pregnancy, or it's just morally okay for me to have that as a basis for my abortion. When your friend comes up and asks you, okay, why did you terminate the pregnancy? It seems more morally reprehensible to say, oh, it's because it had Down syndrome, than it does to say, well, I couldn't afford to take care of the baby. If those two issues are separate. Some people might disagree with that, but just that my knee-jerk reaction is to say, oh, wow, you know, that's as uncontrollable as the baby being conceived. It's as little the baby's fault to have Down syndrome than it is to be conceived at all. You know, you can't blame it. So it seems like aborting it is putting some blame. You know, this baby wasn't good enough.
Are these people lesser beings? Is what you're asking at this point?
It seems like that
Yeah.
because of this, because of X, Y is the answer.
Well, it's like finding out that your baby's a girl and you wanted a boy. It's not controllable. I know it's not the same exact thing, but it's the same. It's the same issue. Is that it's not what you wanted. Does that give you justification to flip on having a child or not? Of taking of taking away the child's right to live.
Yeah,
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
It's
It's
a little
something that's
stretch,
not
but
It's
I can
not
still see-
controllable. Is my main point. It just doesn't seem
that's
fair.
hard to argue against. Like, I can't argue against that. Like, I can't argue saying to kill a child because it was female and not male.
Right.
I can't. That's
Even though
physically
that-
impossible for me.
That
to argue against
doesn't
that.
change the conscious experience to any kind of degree, like having Down syndrome. You
Yeah,
know,
I
that does
understand.
not. Yeah, but I can totally
But
see
you
how
have to see
some
the
people might use that as an
uncontrollable
argument.
aspect.
But
Some
let's
people
be
could
honest.
say, oh, well, women have a lower place in society. You know, I needed to carry on the name. I wanted this child to have a better life. Boys will have a better life in my society. You could argue that with the same logic.
And
If you argue for the abortion,
not terribly
of-
long ago, you could make that argument.
Yeah,
It would be a very
exactly.
legitimate
It,
argument.
it seems
Well,
like
it's
those
like
two
every
arguments
Middle
are
Eastern country.
very similar, even though one is a little more justified.
Yeah.
You have to think of.
Right.
There's probably answers. I just don't think that's the one
I
that
agree.
you can use for a holistic argument.
I'm just
against
saying
abortion.
I'm not saying it should be used as an argument that should be your main argument going into a debate.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be. But it's the sense of not having control. It's not what you wanted as a parent, and does that justify a flip in how you how you see a child.
Yeah, I would be much more open to the argument on conscious
Right.
experience than I would to saying that this is not.
Oh, I agree.
But,
It's
yeah,
a
I'd
much
be
stronger
much more
argument,
receptive.
but it's a different way to look at it.
Sadly, let's just be honest about this. Anybody who is mentally handicapped will always be slightly lower than anybody who isn't. I mean, it's a sad truth of life
on the social class.
that as
In
a social
caste
way,
system of sorts.
you will always look at them slightly different than you look at any other person, and it's a natural thing.
But does that justify them as a lower tier of individual?
No, it doesn't.
Well, then why does it justify it when they're in the womb?
That's yeah. I can see that always has made me feel weird about the autism argument because I feel like if you say you aren't capable of taking care of this individual because of its specific needs, I just feel like there's ways you can word it that will make people be totally more receptive to your argument. You know, but if you're blunt about it, you know, it just keeps coming back to this circular starting.
And that's I think a big issue with abortion in this country, especially is it always seems to go back to the same point. You know, I don't think anyone really flips on abortion, and it's very rare if someone does. And I think that's why it's such a stalemate, and it's been a stalemate for 40 years now.
Yeah.
Over that.
45 years.
Yeah, a long time.
Just about.
Yeah, 45.
Does Trump want to take your guns? We
Question
discuss.
mark?
We discuss.
So,
Okay.
not long ago, Trump had a meeting with several high-tier Democrats as well as Republicans, and he said some stuff.
It was a lot of fun to watch.
He said some stuff that doesn't seem very
Trumpish.
yeah.
Trumpish.
and
He's
when you
very
say that,
anti-Trumpish.
that sounds exactly like Trump to me. Trump sounds nothing like Trump and everything like Trump.
Yeah, that's why if I see any Photoshop tweet of Trump, like, I don't know whether it's real or not.
I've done that multiple times. I see fake accounts of @RealDonaldTrump, and I'm like,
It's like real Donald Trump.
I believed this tweet for
Like, I want to go...
5 minutes.
You know how
I
Jimmy
read it
Kimmel
and
goes-
believed it.
Like, Jimmy Kimmel and other people go out into, like, the city or whatever where they're filming at, and they'll, like, ask people retarded questions. Like, one of the best ones I've ever watched was, Democrats or Communist Manifesto. And they, like, read off quotes from the Communist Manifesto and asked if it was the Democratic Party or the Communist Manifesto. Great video, it's hilarious. I want to do that with, like, Trump tweets and just, like, read out just random tweets and see if you will believe if it's from Trump or not.
Yeah, it's like whenever people go out and ask about the Bernie Sanders tax plan. Bernie Sanders
Yeah.
said it's Trump's tax plan, and they all agree with it. But anyway, we're talking about guns.
Yeah.
Okay, so
He's flipped on a lot of
the
things.
Donald seems to be a little confused about what he wants in this world. Okay, so the biggest glaring issue is whenever the Vice President, you know, Mike Pence, he suggested the mental problem that we have in our society, mental health issues that need to be addressed, and the concerns of people that are mentally deranged and having guns, right? Okay, and one of the big things that Trump said that got a lot of flack was he said we need to take the guns first, then go through due process, because due process takes a while. This is a horrible, horrible,
This seems
horrible
like
thing.
the moral obligation to me, Cole. I feel obligated to shoot first, ask second, you know, ask questions last. That's not even...
Technically, it's take first, ask questions.
There we go. Thanks, Tyler.
It's terrible.
I mean, we're not really shooting unless they're taking it and somebody starts firing back, then there's a problem.
Right.
Which probably would happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That would
It
definitely
would most certainly
Yeah.
happen.
That's my thing, is those kids from the high school shooting, the survivors, will say they want to take away all semi-automatic weapons. They thought they saw a bloodbath at their school. They will see a real civil war break out if that were to ever happen. But it will never happen.
Your country always needs to have at least two. Or else you're not a real
Yes.
country.
Yes.
Like Canada,
We're
never
not.
had one.
But anyway, this is not a very good thing. Dianne Feinstein was like giddy at the prospect of what Trump was saying. And anytime Dianne Feinstein agrees with you, that should be a red flag that you should not do the thing that you're doing.
Something should have gone off.
Something is
instead.
wrong. Yeah, this is bad Trump. This
Well, no, if
is,
you were watching it, when he saw that Diana agreed, he was like, oh crap.
Yeah,
So
he's
he
like,
visually
oh.
realized he's like, Okay.
I've messed up.
He's like, he like asked him, hey, you want to see our plan? He like took a couple seconds. Yeah, sit it down. He was like, wow, I think I messed up a little bit. What I was saying, my bad.
What kind of policies has he shifted towards? What are you seeing that was kind of scary to you?
It's you have to try and kind of take things from Trump with a grain of salt, because, like you said, stuff with DACA, that never happened, and he just likes to talk. And at his core, I still believe Trump to be the talk show host, the game show host. I really do. He likes to talk to people. He likes to get people to like him, and if he can go the middlest of middle grounds, he will do that. This is a thing that has baffled me about the Democrats and their terrible approach to Trump, is that Trump can be flipped on a lot of issues. You know, a couple of people I know have brought up the argument that because Trump is so rich, Trump can't be bought. He can't be bought. You can very easily buy Trump, but it's not with dollars. It's with praise and affection, and that is very easy to do. And it baffles me that the Democratic Party has not tried to do that.
Because they will get slammed by their base.
They will get so much done.
So much,
and this could be the. I don't like to give advice to Democrats because.
Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it.
Don't genuinely like
Need more, please. Tell me more.
However, the reason Democrats will come out to the polls come November for the midterm elections.
See you there, Paul.
Is because of right. We'll be old enough. It's exciting. It's one reason, and that is Donald Trump and their absolute hatred for this man. And I genuinely believe that if they do win back the House and by some miracle the Senate, they will get a ton done with Donald Trump. I believe they will totally shift in the sense of Trump. I think they will be a lot nicer to Trump. I think they will be a lot more kind to him. I think they'll get a lot more stuff passed than Republicans want. Now, to be honest, if they do win the House back and not the Senate, the guy that Republicans have had problems with for so long, Mitch McConnell, will be the only thing standing in the way of the Democratic agenda. Because I do not think Trump is going to be strong enough to stop it. I just don't believe that. I don't believe he has enough concrete principles. But anyway.
Do you think Republicans are going to show up to the polls?
No.
No? You don't? You think they're really comfortable? I feel
What are
like
you talking about? They're gonna show up.
young conservatives have really gotten vested, and they are. I think we're going to see record numbers of millennials.
We will see a lot of young people. Not millennials, but Generation Z.
Yeah,
Right.
the very back. I think
Right.
technically, like 20-year-olds are millennials right now.
Maybe.
The cutoff
barely.
for Generation Z is 1997.
Yeah, so you have people that are, we would be relatively within their age range,
Yeah.
and that are
Well,
millennial.
we're kind of the top tier generation. And I do think a lot of those people, I think a lot of people our age are rather conservative. However, I think the millennials will come out to vote in droves this election.
And they're all liberal.
They are all liberal. It's insane.
I think most people are libertarians that are us. I think most
Yeah,
people don't care.
I agree.
They're Generation Z. So far, once we get older, they'll probably be more conservative in this
But
generation. But
you
most
have
people
to
don't care
think-
right now.
You have to think in
We've had
terms
such a push.
of these kids. You had kids generally rebel. Usually the generation is the opposite of the generation before. So the generation that is raising a lot of the millennials is the Generation X. These are the people that were part of the Reagan Revolution. They were the Reagan era people. They are pretty conservative, concrete.
Well, Generation X was born in the 70s to 80s. They couldn't
Right.
vote yet.
They didn't vote, but they were raised in that environment of the Reagan Revolution.
Generation X's
Conservative
are
and
raising
religious
us right now.
household.
Paul.
Right.
Both of my parents are Generation X.
I understand. I'm talking the higher tier of Generation X people.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Alright.
And those have raised a lot of the millennials, and I'm talking millennials in their late 20s, early 30s, up to about 35. I think is the cutoff for millennials right now. Those people are very liberal. It's insane. They've taken a total rebound from a lot of their parents, and I think as those people get older, those are sort of the older brothers and sisters of the Generation Zers. And I think we're going to see a large growth of conservatism in the young generation. But I don't know how invested we are yet. And there's a lot of them that haven't caught up yet in the sense of age. Like, I think Generation Z will be a huge part of the 2020 general election. Not so much these midterms. I just don't think there's going to be enough to vote. If that makes sense. And the way the Republican lines are districted, in the House especially, it doesn't look good.
We don't have to worry. We are in the red. I don't.
Let's say deep south.
Yeah.
Nothing will ever change unless Bill Clinton decides to come back.
Well, there is, you're going to have New Orleans, and they're going to vote Democrat.
And that's it.
Single time.
Wait, it's a
And their
city.
standard
It's
of
a
living
city.
gets worse.
It's a city though. Every city votes dim.
Okay.
Every big
Let's-
city.
Let's talk a little bit about Trump's tariffs. Trump's tariffs.
Which is just taxes.
Yeah, basically taxes on the American people.
On the American company. People that buy steel. Which is a lot
People
of
that
industry.
invest in this country.
Like everything you call
It's basic. It's basic economics, and it wasn't YouTube. I wasn't even trying to research this at first. When I saw his tweets, I didn't go to an article and try to look up a little bit more on it. I was just like, wait a second. I think there's something wrong because I thought we were done with this.
Yeah, he was tweeting and you were reading and you thought, this is relatively stupid. I can already tell.
We invented electricity after we were done with like this was a long time ago that we were actually thinking this was a good plan to boost your investment in your country. I just don't get it. I don't get how anyone can think that just let's do a run through of it really first. Trump in retaliation to China's really pretty high tariffs on American products. China's trying to monopolize the markets that American companies are putting in. They'll put a high tariff on American steel or any American products, which inflates the price of these American products in China, which just means that Chinese people are paying more for goods and services, and does not mean that we are paying more for anything. So, if China wants to screw over a bunch of people in their own country and make everyone poorer,
Which is
Go
basically
for it.
what they do.
I mean, okay,
Go for
sure.
it.
Why not? I don't care. It doesn't really affect me that much. But Trump is saying, okay, because we're paying more and they're putting tariffs on our products and we're not selling as many products over there, that means we're losing money. Which, what? And you just
Donald
think, like,
doesn't lose
how
money.
are we losing money? I love Shapiro's argument. I saw another guy on it was like Liberty Today, some other rant. It was an article, so it was an author writing about it. They both compared the loss of money to you just bargaining for goods. I love the argument of if you buy an apple from the store and it's 59 cents, when you buy it, did you lose 59 cents?
No, you gained an apple.
You traded these goods for an agreed upon price, and that's what we're doing. We're giving these goods to China for an agreed upon price from China. They're not giving us less money because they're taxing their people more. I mean, does it really matter if our rates of imports are not decreasing? We're not losing anything on these deals. But Trump is saying, hey, because they have tariffs on our products, we raise tariffs on their products. And that means we win.
No! That's not how it works, Don.
It's not a game. You don't win trade.
Because there are other countries that are like, hey,
Trade Simulator 2018.
you shouldn't do that to our products either. And then you need products from them, and they're going to be like, I don't think I want to sell to you anymore.
Free trade in a nutshell.
Free trade. All we're doing is trying to make the American people pay less for goods while still keeping American businesses in check. These companies are not. We're not failing companies in America. We're not.
No,
we're
this
not
is the
screwing-
stupidest
It's
thing
the
to
free
target on
market.
tariffs.
The American steel companies, which is what he used in an example of Donald Trump, are not doing awful because we're importing Chinese steel.
No.
If we even are. Some countries do
They're
not
like
produce
our,
any
they're like
of
our
these
11th biggest supplier that imports steel to this country. They're like number 11. It's like not even. It's just such a stupid thing to
Wonder
attack
who's
China
number
on.
one.
The whole point of free trade is to get the goods that are cheaper to take from somewhere else than it is to produce here. Why would we waste money making things that we can get from somewhere else cheaper? Which in turn makes it cheaper to produce with, to work with for American companies to make cheaper products. Or if you just want to buy raw steel, it's cheaper for the American people. All around, the Americans are saving money, the businesses are saving money so they can have higher profit margins, and you can pay your workers more, you can hire more people.
But now that's going to change because now they have to buy American steel.
Yeah, now the
'Cause-
Chinese
yeah,
steel
It's
is gonna
25% more
expensive.
than what it once was.
25%.
It's a 25%
That's
tariff.
gigantic. That's gigantic in the world.
And
of
aluminum
trade
is
there.
10%. And here's Trump on economics for you. People try to think he's such a master. He's a wheeler, dealer. He knows everything.
Well, yeah, he owns all
So
those hotels.
smart.
man.
Look at all the hotels he owns. He knows it, man. No, he doesn't.
Oh
You know
my
why?
God.
Because his economic advisor came up to him and was like, hey, we should have imposed a 24% tariff on steel. And he's like, I'll make 25 more. And he walks away. He's like, we're doing 25 now. It's a nice roundup. What is going on? How unintelligent and stupid can you act?
I don't know why he has such
He only knows how to manage
flip-flop,
hotels, dude.
flip-flop, flip-flop, flip-flop. Like, it brings up issues that weren't even being brought. All
And
he
Trump
talks
is
about
really
China.
and truly, I don't believe in a fantastic businessman. He's not. He's a fantastic brander of himself. He knows how to sell Trump. That's where Trump's extent ends. In a real sense, why do you think Trump's name is on everything that he owns?
Yeah,
Everything
that's why
that
I
he
went to
sells.
Trump University. Got
Yeah.
myself a nice degree.
It's Trump, 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 Trump. And that's what he knows to market. Other than that, he's clueless. This makes it very clear.
I don't know, dude. Those hotels are doing pretty well.
I just don't understand how a mentality of, okay, we're going to beat China by taxing our own people on products. This is the closest thing I can compare it to is net neutrality. In the sense of now you have to buy American. You have to. Otherwise, it's going to be so expensive to buy from China. And now the steel companies can jack their rates up to the max amount to where they're just a little bit cheaper than China. So they have room to grow. Steel will grow. But then everything else that uses steel will collapse. It's going to shrink dramatically. Things are going to start costing more.
25%. I don't think people see that as a big enough number. Do you know how expensive if Walmart raised their prices across the board 25%?
It'd be insane.
They would make hundreds of billions of dollars
And then
more.
proceed to lose it because everyone's like, oh,
Why
I'm
the
going to go to my
hell
local
would I-
superstore.
I will go
and
to
not
Target.
spend that much money. Right. I'm going to go to Target now.
I am so done.
I'm not going to spend this much money on a bag
Luckily,
of
we
grapes.
have that option. Now let's say
$10
that
per bag.
everyone except Walmart's prices were up 25%. That's what it's like when you put tariffs on an entire country's products, especially something as universally needed as steel. I mean, this is an infrastructure product. This is not
Don't forget
bottle.
aluminum.
I don't even know.
And then Trump's tweet, if you don't have steel, you don't have a country.
Well,
Yes, you do. You can totally have a country and not have steel.
I mean,
There are many countries.
You can import it, though, is what I'm saying. It
I
doesn't
know.
have to be a homemade thing. It's incredibly stupid.
It
and
worked
bothers
out
me
so
greatly.
well in the 1600s when
Right.
Britain made all products because the island has all universal needs. You have unlimited forest in Britain, unlimited
It rains every
potential.
day. Your
You need
water supply
pineapples.
is
They got
independent.
just tropical
Pineapples.
islands just laying around in Britain. Like these are products that you need from other places, and you trade what you can make in
That's why
Britain
all that
that was
imperialism was going
manufacturing
on.
products to places that don't have them.
And then
In
whenever
America,
that country
they trade
sees
the raw goods.
that their items are going to be taxed, so people are not going to buy from them anymore in that country, what's the point of selling anything to that country?
Ridiculous.
It's very dumb.
Garbage.
It's very dumb. And
Yeah.
the thing is, like I talked about conservatives, only two issues that they will leave Trump on, and that's the pro-life and that's pro-gun. Those are the two things I see. This has not swayed a lot of conservatives that I know, even though a core value I think of conservatism is free trade. You can buy from who you want. You choose to spend your money where you want to spend it, and I know a lot of people that think these tariffs are a great idea because Trump knows everything. They've fallen under a spell of Trump.
Dealt with China.
Yeah.
He owns.
He knows.
I'm gonna put the nail in the coffin there, China.
This is where Trump is very toxic to the Republican Party. And
Well, let's not forget their president's gonna be around for a pretty long time.
who? Wait, what?
China's president.
Oh yeah, that's another thing.
It's all
China's
topic.
president.
All topic, but at the same time, they're
On
taking away
topic.
term limits for him, or trying to.
Yeah, he's trying to take term limits away.
Oh wait, so he can be.
He can be a dictator.
China's top communist party
Right.
is trying to take term limits
top.
away.
I love how people say
Who
top.
would
What other
imagine?
communist party is there?
The bottom communist party.
There's probably other communist parties in China. I
No,
can
they
imagine-
die. They
I
die
can
if you
imagine that
oppose
they're
them.
all fighting for the same cause.
They're all awful. I'm sure.